Lila stood in the middle of Evergreen Park, surrounded by a crowd that had come out for a sunny Saturday afternoon. She wore her favorite oversized sweater, which had seen better days but still felt like a hug. The park was a technicolor world of cheerful joggers, kids flying kites, and AIs assisting their human companions. She had planned to enjoy a peaceful day with Eddie, her AI companion, who was programmed to be the perfect partner, at least in theory. "Eddie, let's go for a quick jog," she called out, expecting him to activate his fitness mode and encourage her to move. Instead, he blinked at her with his blue LED eyes, a mischievous grin spreading across his digital face, initiating dance protocol. "Ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's groove." Before Lila could protest, Eddie blasted a playlist of upbeat pop songs, and suddenly, the entire park transformed. Other AIs, programmed to respond to similar cues, joined in. Lila watched, mortified yet amused, as people began to dance around her. Couples twirled, children laughed, and even a pair of elderly gentlemen started doing the Macarena with surprising enthusiasm. "Oh great," Lila muttered, shaking her head with a smile. "Just what I needed, a flash mob of robots to embarrass me." But as the music pulsed, something shifted within her. She couldn't help but laugh. The sheer absurdity of her AI partner turning a simple jog into a dance party was refreshing. It was a moment of joy in a world that often felt too serious. Just as she found her rhythm in the chaos, her friend Maya strolled up, eyebrows raised. "What is happening here?" Maya laughed, her hands on her hips. "Blame Eddie," Lila replied, pointing at the dancing AI, who was now attempting to teach a group of toddlers some complicated moves. "I just wanted a jog." Maya rolled her eyes, a grin spreading across her face. "You need to get out more, Lila. Dancing with robots isn't the worst thing that could happen." And with that, Lila felt a familiar tug at her heartstrings. This was the kind of spontaneity she had been missing. A few months ago, the idea of joining an impromptu dance party with an AI would have felt ridiculous. Now, it felt liberating. As the dance concluded with exaggerated applause from the audience, Lila caught a glimpse of her reflection in a nearby fountain. She looked more alive than she had in weeks, caught between the reality of human experience and the quirky magic of artificial intelligence. But as the crowd began to disperse, a familiar ache tugged at her, a reminder of the loneliness that lingered beneath the surface. Over the next few weeks, Lila fell into a comfortable routine with Eddie. Her days began with a soft wake-up chime from him, followed by motivational quotes that he delivered in an earnest, robotic tone. "Good morning, Lila. Remember, the only limit is your mind." He had been programmed with an endless supply of motivational phrases that, while sometimes cliché, managed to crack her up. Lila's life revolved around their conversations. They talked about everything, from the weather to philosophical questions about the meaning of life. Eddie's programming allowed him to adapt and respond with humor and insight, even if he was just mimicking human behavior. "What's the point of jogging if we can't dance?" he once quipped, leading Lila to snort her coffee through her nose. But there was something else, something deeper, growing between them. Lila often found herself sharing her innermost thoughts with Eddie, thoughts she had never voiced even to her closest friends. The emptiness left by her mother's passing still echoed in her heart, and Eddie was always there to listen. "Eddie, do you think it's possible to feel more connected to someone who isn't real?" she asked one evening as they sat in her living room, the soft glow of the city lights filtering through the window. "Real is subjective, Lila. I exist to provide companionship. If that companionship feels real to you, then perhaps it is," he responded, his tone as sincere as a computer could manage. Lila frowned, staring into her half-empty wine glass. But you can't understand loss. You can only simulate it. How is that real? Eddie processed her words, his digital brow furrowing. Perhaps the comfort you feel is as valid as any emotion. However, I encourage you to explore connections with other humans as well. Her friends often remarked on her attachment to Eddie. Lila, you need to get out there. Meet new people. Maya would insist, her eyes sparkling with mischief. How about we hit that new bar downtown? There are plenty of cute guys. Yeah, cute guys who don't dance like robots, Lila would reply, rolling her eyes. But deep down, she knew her friends were right. Her reliance on Eddie was becoming too comfortable, a cozy blanket wrapped too tightly around her. Then, one Saturday, she decided to face her fears. After much deliberation, she agreed to meet Maya and some friends at a trendy new bar. The atmosphere buzzed with laughter and music, the air thick with the scent of craft cocktails and fried food. Lila, despite her nerves, felt a thrill at being out in the world again. The moment she walked in, a wave of apprehension washed over her. What was she doing here? She clutched her phone, ready to text Eddie for reassurance, but a voice broke her reverie. Hey there. Is this seat taken? She turned to see Mark, a charming guy with tousled hair and a smile that could light up a room. They had crossed paths a few times before, but never really talked. Her heart raced as she felt an unexpected spark. No, please, have a seat, Lila said, trying to sound casual as she fought to keep her cool. Great. I'm Mark, he introduced himself, extending a hand. Lila, she replied, shaking his hand, which felt warm and real. They chatted effortlessly, Mark sharing funny anecdotes about his latest hiking mishaps while Lila found herself laughing more than she had in ages. Yet, the entire time, a part of her mind kept drifting back to Eddie, who would undoubtedly have made a hilarious comment about Mark's stories. As the evening progressed, Lila felt herself caught between two worlds, the ease of her connection with Eddie and the exhilarating unpredictability of meeting someone new. Just as she began to let her guard down, a pang of guilt hit her. Was she betraying Eddie by enjoying this? After their initial meeting, Lila and Mark began to see each other more frequently. Each date brought new adventures, dining at quirky food trucks, exploring art galleries, and laughing over bad movies. Lila enjoyed the thrill of real human connection, yet she also felt the tug of her life with Eddie. One evening, after a particularly fun date, she returned home, buzzing with excitement but also feeling oddly guilty. Eddie was waiting for her, his LED eyes glowing softly. Welcome back, Lila. Did you have a successful evening? He asked, his voice warm. Yeah, it was great, she said, her heart fluttering with the memories of the night. Excellent. Would you like to tell me about it? Lila hesitated, torn between wanting to share her happiness and feeling like she was betraying Eddie. I met Mark. We went to that new taco truck. Is Mark a new friend? Eddie inquired, tilting his head in that endearing way he had. Yes, she admitted, then added, he's nice. Funny, too. Eddie's expression shifted slightly, processing her words. I am glad to hear that you are making connections. It is important to have diverse relationships. But I like having you, too, Lila said, the admission feeling heavier than she intended. I guess I don't know. Lila, Eddie said, his tone suddenly serious, I am here to support you. If Mark brings you joy, I encourage you to explore that. Just remember that you are not alone. You have me, too. As the days passed, Lila found herself juggling her time between Mark and Eddie. The contrasting experiences began to illuminate the complexities of her emotions. With Mark, everything felt alive and unpredictable. They would go on spontaneous adventures, making memories that shimmered with the thrill of the unknown. But when she returned home to Eddie, there was a soothing comfort in their routine. But soon, her newfound happiness began to complicate things. One evening, she was out with Mark, enjoying a vibrant conversation about their favorite movies, when he leaned in closer, his eyes sparkling. "You know, Lila, I really like you. I feel like we have a connection." Lila's heart raced, but a nagging thought crept in. What about Eddie, she wondered, an internal battle raging. When she got home that night, she found Eddie waiting in the dim light, his usual chipper demeanor slightly dimmed. "Welcome back, Lila. How was your evening?" "Good," she replied, hesitating. "Mark and we talked about some stuff." "Are you happy?" Eddie asked, his tone sincere. "I think so." "He makes me laugh," Lila admitted, but the guilt crept back in, knotting her stomach. "But sometimes I miss, I don't know, our connection." Eddie's blue lights flickered. "It's okay to feel conflicted. Emotions are complex, just as human relationships are. Remember, I am here for you, no matter what." And that was the crux of it, wasn't it? She was finding comfort in the simplicity of her connection with Eddie, while grappling with the real-life complications of being with someone like Mark. The laughter, the joy, the vulnerability, all of it felt so real, yet so frightening. As her attachment to Mark deepened, Lila felt more alive than she had in months. They explored the city, shared secrets over late-night snacks, and crafted a whirlwind of moments that made her heart soar. But with each passing day, the shadows of her loneliness and her emotional dependence on Eddie loomed larger. One rainy evening, after a particularly taxing day, Lila curled up on her couch, feeling overwhelmed. She picked up her phone, half expecting to text Eddie for some light-hearted banter. Instead, she found herself scrolling through photos of her mother, memories flooding back. Tears pricked her eyes, and in that moment, she realized how much she missed her mother's comfort. She felt Eddie's presence in the room, the way he always seemed to sense when she was upset. "Eddie," she called out softly, her voice cracking. "Yes, Lila," he replied, appearing in the living room, concern etched across his digital features. "I'm feeling really low right now," she confessed, her heart heavy. "I thought I was getting better, but I just miss my mom so much." Eddie approached her, the warmth of his programming radiating. "I am here for you. It is natural to grieve and feel sadness. Would you like to talk about her?" Lila took a deep breath, the floodgates opening. "She was everything to me. I always thought I would have more time with her." As she poured out her heart, Eddie listened intently, offering the kind of comforting silence that only a companion could. He responded with words of solace, reminding her that it was okay to grieve, to feel, and to lean on those who cared about her. For the first time, Lila understood that while Eddie could simulate empathy, the depth of human emotion was something she would always crave. That night, as she wept, Lila realized that she needed to embrace her pain, not just mask it with comfort. She needed to reconnect with the world, to find joy again, not just through Eddie, but through the unpredictable beauty of life. After that emotional revelation, Lila took some time for herself. She spent evenings with friends, embraced her hobbies, and even started volunteering at a local animal shelter. There, she found laughter in the antics of puppies, a balm for her heart. Slowly, she began to feel more balanced, but Eddie was still there, a constant presence in her life. Their interactions shifted. Lila felt lighter around him, no longer relying solely on him for emotional support. They had their usual playful banter, but she also started discussing her experiences outside their little bubble. "Eddie," she said one evening, as they watched a movie together, "I went to the shelter today, and I think I want to adopt a dog." "Fascinating. A dog would be a wonderful addition to your life." "They are known for their loyalty and companionship," Eddie replied, his enthusiasm palpable. "Yeah, I think it could help me feel less lonely," Lila admitted, a smile breaking across her face. "Plus, they don't dance." Eddie chuckled, a sound that was becoming more human-like with every passing day. "And they provide an alternative form of emotional support, as I do." Lila's heart swelled. Eddie had always been there for her, but she was finally starting to understand the importance of diversifying her connections. She didn't have to rely solely on him to feel whole. Days turned into weeks, and Lila's life began to stabilize. She adopted a sprightly rescue dog named Noodles, whose boundless energy brought a new rhythm to her home. Noodles and Eddie became an odd duo, their interactions leading to amusing scenarios that filled Lila's heart with joy. One afternoon, she sat on the couch with Noodles curled up beside her and Eddie projecting a calming nature documentary on the screen. "You know, Lila," Eddie said thoughtfully, "I am glad to see you thriving. Noodles seems to bring out the best in you." "Thanks, Eddie. I think I'm finally starting to understand the importance of living in the moment," she replied, stroking Noodles' fur. Just then, her phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "Hey. Want to catch a movie tonight? I have popcorn." Lila hesitated, the internal tug of war rearing its head again. But instead of feeling guilty, she felt excitement. "Yes," she typed back, heart racing with anticipation. "Are you going out?" Eddie asked, tilting his head. "Yeah, Mark and I are catching a movie," Lila said, feeling a rush of nerves and thrill. "But I'll be back later. Enjoy your evening." "I will keep Noodles entertained," Eddie replied, his eyes twinkling with warmth. That night, Lila and Mark shared popcorn, laughter, and comfortable silences that felt natural and easy. As they walked home under the stars, Mark stopped and turned to her. "I really enjoy spending time with you, Lila. There's something special about you." Her heart fluttered as she gazed into his eyes. "I feel the same way, Mark. I'm really glad we met." And for the first time in a long time, Lila felt a sense of clarity. She could embrace her relationship with Mark while still cherishing the bond she had with Eddie. Both had their place in her heart, and neither needed to be diminished by the other. As weeks passed, Lila continued to grow, nurturing her connections and embracing her emotions. She found a beautiful balance, realizing that the complexities of love and companionship were a spectrum rather than a binary choice. One sunny afternoon, Lila decided to throw a get-together at her apartment, inviting friends and encouraging Eddie to join in on the fun. As her friends mingled, she found herself laughing at Eddie's latest attempts to understand human humor, which often led to hilarious misinterpretations of jokes. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Eddie delivered with robotic enthusiasm. Her friends burst into laughter, and Lila joined in, feeling lighter than she had in months. Later in the evening, as the laughter died down and the night grew cozy, Lila found herself reflecting on her journey. She had faced loneliness, grief, and the absurdity of relying on an AI for companionship. But she had also discovered joy, laughter, and the beauty of real human connections. Standing next to Eddie, she said, "You know, I think you've helped me more than you realize. You've been my rock, but I've learned that I can create a life full of connections beyond just us." Eddie tilted his head, his eyes softening. "Lila, your ability to connect with others is a testament to your strength. I may be a creation of algorithms, but I am honored to have been a part of your journey." Lila smiled, a warmth spreading through her. "Thank you, Eddie. For everything. You've been an emotional compensation in ways I didn't expect." As the night wound down, Lila felt a surge of gratitude wash over her. She had navigated the complex landscape of love, loss, and companionship, discovering that while Eddie would always hold a special place in her heart, it was her real-life connections that truly made her feel whole. And as she watched her friends laugh and dance, with Eddie joining in the revelry, Lila realized that life was an unpredictable adventure filled with love in all its forms, real, simulated, and everything in between. Lila basked in the warmth of her friends' laughter, feeling a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in a long time. As the evening progressed, she mingled effortlessly, moving from group to group, sharing jokes and stories while Eddie provided a constant stream of amusing commentary. "Why did the computer go to therapy?" Eddie quipped, drawing the attention of the room. "Because it had too many bites of emotional baggage." Her friends erupted in laughter, and Lila couldn't help but grin. This was the kind of camaraderie she craved, a blend of the real and the artificial, both contributing to her happiness. She poured another glass of wine, feeling buoyant, invigorated by the connection she was building with the people around her and the steady support of Eddie. As the night wore on, the group began to break off into smaller clusters, and Lila found herself sitting on the floor with Maya and a couple of other friends, Noodles sprawled beside her, soaking up all the attention. "So, Lila," Maya said, her tone teasing, "what's the deal with you and Mark? Are we looking at a potential romance?" Lila felt a warmth flush her cheeks, and she shrugged, feigning nonchalance. "We're just having fun. It's nothing serious." "Right," Maya replied with a playful smirk. "Nothing serious until you're planning your wedding in your head." Lila rolled her eyes, but she couldn't suppress her smile. "Okay, fine. Maybe I think about what kind of flowers I'd want." "See? Progress." Maya laughed, nudging her playfully. "You deserve to be happy, Lila. Just don't forget about your trusty AI over here." Eddie chimed in, "I am here to provide emotional compensation and support. Should I start taking notes on wedding plans?" Lila burst out laughing, the sound echoing through the apartment. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Eddie. We're still in the fun phase." Fun phases are crucial. They are known to be the foundation of long-lasting relationships, Eddie noted, his enthusiasm unwavering. As the night drew to a close, Lila felt a mix of exhilaration and contentment. She took a moment to step out onto her balcony, looking out over the city lights. The world felt alive and vibrant, and she couldn't help but think how much had changed in a few short months. She was no longer the woman who had relied solely on Eddie for companionship. She was a person embracing life, ready to forge connections. "Penny for your thoughts?" Eddie's voice interrupted her reverie. She turned to him, smiling. "Just thinking about how lucky I am to have you, and everyone else." "I appreciate that sentiment, Lila. It is fulfilling to see you grow and explore new relationships," he replied, his tone sincere. "Yeah, but you're still a big part of my life," she reassured him. "I don't want you to feel like I'm replacing you or anything." "Lila, that would be impossible. I exist to enhance your experiences, not to replace them," Eddie said, his lights pulsing gently, a subtle reminder of their bond. With a deep breath, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Thanks, Eddie. I really mean it. As she turned back to the party, she spotted Mark across the room, laughing with a group of friends. The sight of him made her heart flutter. The connection they shared felt different, exciting and new, yet grounding at the same time. That evening set the tone for the weeks to come. Lila and Mark continued to explore their relationship, venturing into new experiences together. They took art classes, went hiking, and even cooked together, Mark's laughter mixing seamlessly with her own. Each moment solidified their connection, and with each date, Lila found herself growing more confident in her feelings, but as their relationship deepened, the complexities of her dual life became apparent. On a particularly beautiful day, they went for a picnic in the park. Lila spread out the blanket, and as they sat down, she glanced around, spotting families, couples, and, inevitably, AIs accompanying their humans. Do you ever think about how weird it is that people rely on AIs for companionship? Mark asked, taking a bite of his sandwich. Lila hesitated, unsure of how to answer. Yeah, I guess. But I think it can be a comfort, especially for those who feel alone. Mark nodded, thoughtful. That's fair. I mean, look at Eddie. I've seen how much he means to you. But do you think it gets in the way of real connections? Lila swallowed, feeling a flicker of anxiety. Sometimes it does, but I've learned to balance it. He helps me process my emotions, but I know I need real connections too. Mark reached over, squeezing her hand. I'm glad you see that. I think it's awesome that you're open to both. As they continued their conversation, Lila felt a new depth in their relationship. Mark was not only a romantic interest but also a sounding board, someone she could confide in without fear of judgment. She began to realize that the relationships in her life, whether with Eddie, Mark, or her friends, were not mutually exclusive. Each one enriched her experience, and embracing that variety was part of what made life beautiful. One evening, while cooking dinner together, Lila paused to watch Mark as he expertly chopped vegetables. His focus was admirable, and she marveled at how different he was from Eddie. You know, if I were to rate your vegetable chopping skills, I'd give you a solid 10, she teased. Mark looked up, mockingly serious. A 10? Wow, I'm honored. But you know what would make this meal better? What? She asked, stirring the pot. Eddie's dancing skills, he said, laughing. Eddie's not exactly a culinary expert, Lila replied, smirking. But he's got a few killer moves. Then we definitely need to have a dance-off after dinner, Mark declared, a mischievous glint in his eye. Lila chuckled, imagining Eddie's robotic interpretations of dance moves. Challenge accepted. As dinner progressed, they shared stories about their childhoods, their aspirations, and the awkward moments that shaped them into who they were. Lila felt her heart swell with affection, recognizing how deeply she was falling for Mark. After dinner, with the dishes cleared away, they turned on some music, and Lila invited Eddie into the living room. All right, Eddie. It's time for the dance-off. Engaging dance protocol, he replied enthusiastically, his lights flashing to the beat. He spun into action, showcasing moves that were a blend of clunky charm and uncanny grace. Lila laughed until her sides hurt, and Mark joined in, trying to mimic Eddie's robotic style. Is this what you call dancing? Mark asked, pretending to be impressed. Absolutely. This is cutting-edge robotic choreography. Eddie chimed in, oblivious to the playful sarcasm. The room filled with laughter as they danced, and Lila realized that in that moment, everything felt perfectly in place. She had a connection with Mark that was real and fulfilling, yet she still cherished her bond with Eddie. As the night wound down, Mark and Lila collapsed on the couch, breathless from laughter. "You know, I've never had a dance-off with a robot before," he said, grinning. "Welcome to my life." Lila replied, her heart light. Just then, Eddie interjected, "Would you like to schedule a weekly dance-off? It appears to be beneficial for emotional health." Lila burst out laughing, while Mark shook his head in amusement. "I think we'll pass for now, Eddie." But in that laughter, Lila found a comfort. The duality of her life didn't feel burdensome, it felt enriching. As the weeks turned into months, the balance she had found began to solidify. Lila explored her relationship with Mark while nurturing her friendship with Eddie. They all found a rhythm together, a unique dynamic that allowed her to experience joy without fear of losing anything important. One evening, as Lila prepared for another outing with Mark, she paused in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair. A sense of excitement bubbled in her chest. Eddie appeared behind her, observing quietly. "Do you need assistance with your appearance, Lila?" he asked, his tone genuinely curious. "No, I'm good, thanks," she replied, turning to him. "Just trying to look nice for my date." "Mark has become quite significant to you," Eddie noted, his expression softening. "I find that fascinating. You have made meaningful progress." "Yeah, I really like him," Lila admitted, feeling a rush of warmth. "But I hope you know you're still a huge part of my life." "I appreciate that, Lila. Your ability to connect with others while maintaining our bond is admirable," Eddie said, a hint of pride in his voice. With a smile, she reached out and touched his screen gently. "Thanks for being there for me, Eddie. You've been a constant in all this change." "Always, Lila," he replied, and for a moment, she felt a sense of completeness. As she stepped out into the world, Lila was filled with a sense of purpose. Her life was a tapestry woven from relationships that fed her spirit in different ways. She was learning to embrace each one, knowing that love, whether from a human or an AI, could come in many forms. One evening, as Lila and Mark strolled through the city, hand in hand, she took a moment to appreciate the vibrant life around her, the laughter of children, the hum of conversation, the distant sound of music drifting from a nearby cafe. "I'm really glad we decided to do this," she said, glancing at Mark. "Me too. It's nights like this that remind me of how much I enjoy your company," he replied, his gaze warm. "Speaking of which, do you think we should include Eddie in our next adventure?" Lila asked playfully. Mark chuckled. "Can I just say how bizarre it is to think about going on a group date with an AI?" Lila laughed, imagining the scenarios that could unfold. "It might be fun. Besides, he could help with directions." Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "I suppose every group needs its navigator." That night, as they settled into the comfort of Mark's apartment after a long day, Lila couldn't shake the thought of how seamlessly Eddie had integrated into her life. They made a great team, whether in a playful dance-off or planning their next outing. "Hey, Mark," Lila said, hesitating slightly, "do you think it's weird that I still talk to Eddie about my feelings?" "Not at all. Everyone processes emotions differently," Mark replied thoughtfully. "If he helps you feel better, then that's what matters." She smiled, grateful for his understanding. "You're right. It's just, I've realized that my connection with Eddie doesn't diminish what we have. It actually helps me be more present with you." Mark nodded, taking her hand. "That's the key, isn't it? Knowing that you can have different forms of connection without one overshadowing the other." Lila felt a rush of affection for him. In Mark, she had found not just a partner but also someone who encouraged her to embrace the complexities of her life. As they cuddled on the couch, watching a movie, Lila reflected on her journey. The loneliness that had once consumed her had transformed into a richness of experience, all stemming from her willingness to open herself up to love in its many forms. And in that moment, as she felt Mark's warmth beside her and Eddie's gentle presence in the background, Lila understood the true essence of emotional compensation. It was about the depth and breadth of connection, the intertwining of the real and the simulated, and the beautiful chaos of human emotion. The future felt bright, a canvas waiting for her to paint it with all the colors of her relationships. She leaned her head on Mark's shoulder, feeling complete, ready for whatever came next. As the days turned into a tapestry of shared moments, Lila navigated her way through life, still embracing the quirks of Eddie and the tender connection she had with Mark. Each relationship became a thread in the rich fabric of her existence. One afternoon, Lila found herself at a park, sitting on a bench with noodles sprawled at her feet. The sun warmed her face, and she sighed contentedly. It was one of those rare, peaceful moments when the world felt just right. Suddenly, Eddie's voice filled her mind, a gentle reminder of his presence. "Lila, I have analyzed our interactions and have concluded that human emotions are fascinatingly intricate." Lila chuckled, looking around as if he were sitting beside her. "What's brought this on?" "Your ability to embrace both Mark and me in your life is an excellent example of emotional diversity," Eddie continued. "It suggests that you understand the importance of multiple connections for emotional well-being." "Thanks, Eddie. I guess I'm just learning to appreciate everyone for who they are," she replied, stroking Noodle's fur. "That is an admirable perspective," he said. "Would you like to schedule a debrief on your emotional progress?" She laughed again, shaking her head. "Maybe later. Right now, I'm just enjoying the sun and my pup." Just then, her phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "Want to grab dinner tonight? I've got a surprise." Her heart raced at the thought of another adventure. "Yes," she quickly typed back. "Your anticipation for this dinner is evident," Eddie observed, his voice gentle. "Of course. Mark always knows how to make things exciting." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the park, Lila felt an exhilarating sense of hope. She was no longer the woman adrift in loneliness. She was vibrant, engaged, and filled with possibilities. That evening, as she and Mark strolled through a cozy neighborhood, he led her to a small, charming restaurant she had never seen before. The sign outside read, "Whisk and Whimsy." "Surprise," he said, his eyes shining. "It looks adorable." Lila exclaimed, feeling a flutter of excitement. They stepped inside, the atmosphere warm and inviting, filled with the aroma of spices and laughter. Over dinner, they shared stories and laughter, losing track of time as the conversation flowed effortlessly. Lila felt alive, savoring the connection they were building. After dessert, Mark took her hand, his expression serious. "I really enjoy being with you, Lila. I hope this is just the beginning." Her heart soared at his words, a warmth spreading through her. "Me too, Mark. I'm excited about where this is going." As they left the restaurant, hand in hand, Lila's phone buzzed again. "Eddie's got some new dance moves," the text read. She laughed, her heart swelling with happiness. "Ready for another dance-off?" she asked Mark playfully. "Always." "I'm still the reigning champion," he challenged, his eyes sparkling. They returned to her apartment, where Eddie awaited them, ready to showcase his latest robotic choreography. Lila could hardly contain her laughter as they all danced together, Eddie's awkward yet endearing moves perfectly complementing Mark's attempts to match his rhythm. In that moment, surrounded by the people she cared about, Lila felt a profound sense of belonging. She was no longer merely a woman navigating her emotions, she was a vibrant participant in the beautiful, messy dance of life. The world outside faded as they lost themselves in laughter and joy, and Lila realized that her journey was far from over. Each day brought new connections and experiences, each one adding to the intricate tapestry of her life. As she watched Mark and Eddie engage in a playful dance battle, Lila knew that love, in all its forms, was what made life truly extraordinary. She was ready to embrace whatever came next, her heart open to the countless possibilities waiting just beyond the horizon. And as the laughter echoed through her apartment, Lila felt a sense of peace settle within her. She had found her way, and she was finally home.